Hi everyone, welcome back to Nivaro. In lesson 3.1, we're really going to focus on the specifics of HTML and CSS. I know that Arjun already covered sort of what their functionality are and how they might work on a website, sort of generally. But today I really want to dive deep and really focus on how exactly HTML should be written, why things are there, and really I just want to get into the detail because I know Arjun just gave a more general overview, but today I want to explain everything in a lot of detail so everything makes a lot of sense to you. So on the right, you can see a pre-written HTML page, and on the left, you can see what this actually looks like on a website. And I'm really going to dive deep into what every section does. And this might overlap a little bit with what Arjun already taught, but I want to make sure that everyone really understands everything. Taking a slightly closer look into the actual HTML code, we can see that here at the top are two tags, which of course are denoted by the little arrows that you can see. So these two right here, like this, like almost like the greater than and less than signs that you probably use in math class a little bit. And then this denotes the start of a tag. And then down here, you can see that the end of a tag is first followed by a / and then it just ends like normal. And the thing between the greater than and less than tags sort of describes what the tag exactly does, right? So here we're just describing that this is the head of the website, and the head of the website just gives general information as to what language we're using, sort of what characters we want to use, how big a website should be, the title of a website, and sort of all those different things. So here we can see inside of the head, there are a bunch of different things. A lot of them are sort of the ones I talked about, where here we're just using the character set UTF-8. You don't really need to know exactly what that is, but it's just basically saying, make sure you're using the English language. Don't be using any, Chinese character sets or anything like that. And then here are just some other sort of settings. It's not really important to memorize any of these, but you can sort of read and understand what these do. So if we look at the content, we can see that we want the website width to be equal to the device width, and then the initial scale to just be 1.0. So that's sort of the default. But yeah, so here is the title. Again, if we were to change the title, let me move this over a little bit. If we were to change the title to maybe, I don't know, David's website instead, right? David's website, and then save this. We can see that up here on the top left, it actually changed to David's website. So all these changes are nothing on the actual website itself. It's just sort of all the settings and the website name and everything like that. But if we look down here on the actual website, this is where the actual body of the website is, and we're moving on from the general settings and everything into the actual website itself. And again, this is just denoted by the body tags right here and then down here. And in between the body tags, we have a bunch of different tags, and I'm going to get into what each of those do in a second. But it's sort of important to know that generally the settings of a website are going to be underneath the head, underneath the head tags right here, and all the actual content and everything you see inside a website is going to be between the two body tags, like here. Okay, so looking a little bit closer at the actual body tags. So firstly, we can see something called a header, and then an H1. And then inside of the H1 tag, there's some text in here that just says, welcome to HTML and CSS Showcase. If we look to the left, we can actually correlate this. We can sort of match that code to the title that we actually see on the website, right? Welcome to HTML and CSS Showcase up here, and then the same thing right here. If we want, we can edit this to whatever text we want. So maybe instead of the HTML CSS Showcase, we can just say, welcome to David's website. And then save this, and then you can see how it just instantly changes over there. So that's sort of an easy way to change text. If you're just completely lost and don't really know what to do, but you do have your HTML code out, then you can just look at a website and then say, maybe I want to change this HTML tags to say something different. And then you can find that in the actual HTML code, and you can just change this however you want, right? So maybe instead of HTML tags, I can just, I don't know, say David was here instead, right? And I sort of replace it there. So going back to the tags, we can see that this is wrapped Wrapped means that it's between. So it's wrapped between a header, and then inside of the header, we can also see two H1 tags, right? So that means that the welcome to David's website is wrapped between the H1 tags and is also wrapped between the header tags. And if we do one step further beyond that, that's also wrapped between the body tags, like so. So it just sort of keeps on going. But right now, I just want to focus on the H1 and the header. So the H1, as Arjun said before, sort of just means header 1, which is sort of the biggest font, the biggest default font that HTML uses. Although you can change this a little bit with styles, with CSS. But just know for now that H1 just means header 1. And if you ever see H2, H3, or different headings, then that slightly changes the font size. And I'll get into that a little bit more later. So here we can see that there are two header tags. So as you might guess, the header tag just sort of puts this text, this code up top to the header. So if we get rid of the header tags right here, I'm just going to put in some comments like so. We can see that instead of being centered over here, it just gets, moved back to the default text. So we can get rid of the headers, recode the headers in, and you can see that now everything is back in the centered and looks a lot nicer. Okay, and moving down from the header, we're going to actually get to the main code. So again, you can see that this is wrapped inside of a main wrapper. And then this is where actually, we've gone past the settings, we've gone past the footer, the heading, and now we're onto the actual code. And then here we can see, different parts of the code. So we're going back into the H2s. So you can notice that H2 is just a little bit small. And down here, you can see that David was here is an H3. And like I said before, the higher the number, the smaller the text is going to be after an H. So I'm just going to change this back to an H1, and then H1, save it. And you can see how the text does get a little bit bigger. And another tag that you can use is the P tag. And then P just stands for paragraph. So in between the P tags right here, you can see that this section showcases different HTML tags. And if we correlate this to the left, you can see it just looks like a normal paragraph. There's nothing fancy about it. It just looks like a normal paragraph that you would see on a random website. And then underneath that, you can see all the different heading tags. So like I said before, heading 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You can see how they all get just a little bit smaller as they keep going down. And then here on the actual code, if you look to the right, you can see how we're using H1, H2, H3, 4, 5, and 6, so on and so forth. When you're coding, I know it might seem really confusing at first, and you're like, there's no way I could possibly memorize all these different headings. There's H1, H2, the paragraph, the main, the head. There are two extremely useful tools that you can use to make sure that this doesn't get to you. So the first tool I would use is just Nivaro's chatbot, which, me and Arjun have been talking about a lot. If you're ever stuck on something and you're like, I don't know how to make this font bigger or how to make this color look a little bit nicer, go to our chatbot. That's the very first thing you want to do. And something else you can do is just straight up search up, HTML tags. So HTML tags, searching up HTML tags, and then probably click on the second link. And then here are just a bunch of different examples of HTML tags. So here's the paragraph tag that I was talking about before, the heading tag, and some other tags we haven't really talked about. So if you want to make some text bold, you can just use the bold tag, maybe make it italic. But here's just a very nice list that you can use to sort of get started with the tags. There are a couple of other different tags that you can use inside of your website. One example would be maybe a list tag or an unordered list tag, but we won't really get into those today. But if that's something you're interested in, you can definitely look into that yourself. Here's a quick example I coded up myself right here. If you do, for whatever reason, want to have a list inside of your website, but in that case, you can obviously use Nivaro's chatbot, so you don't get stuck. Okay, and let's talk a little bit about CSS now. So I've sort of covered HTML, all over again, sort of what tags are and how they might work. But now let's actually dive deeper into CSS and try to make our website, look a little bit better. Right now it looks really gray, so that's something that I want to fix. Okay, so the very first thing I have in my example is inside of a CSS, I have body and then two curly brackets, and then inside I have some different settings, right? And that's sort of just how all of CSS is, where, we can correlate this back to the body right here. And every tag inside of your HTML can be customized using CSS, with different colors, different fonts, different, font sizes, You can move it around all over your website, and you can really, customize it any way you want. So as a quick example, I'm going to take a look at H1. So again, that's just the header. And then I'm going to make a new one. So here at the top, I'm just going to make H1, 2 curly brackets, and from here I can just customize it. So maybe I want a different color, right? So I'm just going to say color, and then I don't know, you can literally type out just blue and then add a semicolon and save it, and you can see how all the H1 tags on the left are actually converted to the color blue. And then if we actually want to double check this, so the H1 right here, welcome to David's website, correlates with the welcome to David's website on the actual website. Another H1 tag right here with David was here, and then you can see how all these H1s have all turned into blue. So that's sort of how it works, where if you have something wrapped inside of a tag, and if you change that tag inside of the CSS, then it's going to change all the different tags. So that way it's really nice, and you can sort of keep all your different styles the same. So honestly, I'm gonna get rid of this because it does look pretty bad, and I'm gonna save it and change it back. But another example I could give is the header, right? So again, we made the header back here, where the header again just says welcome to David's website, and we wrapped inside of the header is just the H1 and welcome to David's website. So if we wanted to change the header, we can maybe change the background color to be, right now it's sort of an ugly gray. So I'm going to change it to, maybe a little nicer red, and then save it. And then you can see, it has a nice, much nicer color. It actually, looks pleasant to look at. So you can see just how easy it is to just change the background of a website. All you have to do is just, literally pick a different color, and then just change it in the CSS. And from there you should be good. And I realize that, it might seem really confusing right now. Again, you might be like, there's no way I'm going to memorize all this. But again, this is sort of where our chatbot can come in. You can just tell the chatbot like, hey, can you make this background a certain type of color, and then maybe the chatbot is going to spit back at you a nice styles.css, and then we can sort of paste it back in and then see how that looks. So I'm actually going to do a quick demonstration right here, and all I'm going to do is just copy my CSS over and just say hey, I don't like the white background. Can you make it a light blue? And then send it. And it's going to think for a second, and it's just saying, hey, just change this body right here and just copy and paste this back on over here. And all it did, you can see, is just it added something called background color light blue, and it even added a nice little comment. So I'm going to save it. And then you can see we changed the background color of the website to a light blue, and even if I had no prior knowledge whatsoever, all I had to do was just copy and paste this over to our chatbot, and you can see how it just added a single line of code and it made everything look a lot nicer. So that was a deeper look at HTML and CSS. Again, if you guys have any questions, the first thing you should look at is the Nivaro chatbot, and then maybe search up your question online. And then from there, ask your teacher, or you can ask one of us, and we're going to be more than happy to help you guys. So that pretty much wraps everything up for lesson 3.1.